Hello again. In the 1990s, the expression failed state was coined in reference to Somalia. Since then, a number of other countries have been classified as being either failed states or being at great danger of becoming such. A failed state is simply one where law and order has broken down to the extent that the government cannot provide security or safety for its citizens. The thumbnail to this video shows in dark reddish brown those nations of the world which are either failed states or at serious risk of becoming so. It would be observed that almost all of them are in sub-Saharan Africa, and also that there is a swathe of Muslim nations in the Middle East, such as Iraq, Afghanistan, and so on. The light-coloured parts of the world, and those which are blue, are the most stable and safe nations. It will be seen that these comprise of Western Europe, the United States, Canada, and Australasia. What we are currently seeing, not only in this country, but also in America and Canada, is the transfer of populations from these failed states to the better regulated and safer countries of the world. Those arriving in this country by crossing the channel in small boats are almost invariably from either sub-Saharan Africa or those Muslim nations such as Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, and so on, which are either failed states or at grave risk of becoming failed states. The more that such people arrive here, the more that two possible outcomes are likely to be seen. On the one hand, it might be that when they come here, it's found that living in a peaceful country where people are polite and respect each other's boundaries, are keen to queue up and take their turn, speak quietly rather than shouting, treat women courteously, and so on. This will all set a fine example to the newcomers, which they will be eager to emulate. In other words, they will adapt to the English way of life, and after a while will behave more like ordinary English people. They will wait their turn quietly, not make a fuss, be ready to solve disputes in a low-key and good-humoured fashion, kind of thing. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that they will behave in this country pretty much as they did in the failed states which they left, preferring to resolve disputes by shouting and violence, will regard women as objects to be seized by main force, and be ready to cheat and rob to gain any advantage over others. This kind of conduct will spread, and eventually even those born in this country will start behaving more like that, abandoning their own traditions of what constitute good manners and correct conduct. As to which of these two things is more likely to happen, I could not say, but I can perhaps uh, tell you a little parable which might shed some light on the matter. Once upon a time, a little boy was helping his grandmother store apples for the winter. To do that, you have to place them in a cool, dark place, like a cellar. In this case, they were being placed up in the loft, where they remain wholesome and edible all through the winter until the spring. When you're doing that, it's important that the apples are all perfect, though, with no bruises or discoloured patches. The little boy started laying the apples out of the basket carefully in rows, and he noticed that one had a little brown patch, but he didn't think it mattered. At the back of his mind was the idea that maybe all the healthy and sound apples would make that bad patch better. In other words, that the good apples would act as an example and cure the bad one. During the winter, he and his grandmother went up into the loft to bring down some apples to make a pie. And he was horrified to see that not only was the apple which he had left there with a spot now completely rotten, but that it had affected a dozen other apples around it, and they had all turned brown and rotten as well. His grandmother explained that this was the same with people. that rather than a lot of good people making one bad person good, it was far more likely that the bad person would contaminate the others around him, and that they too would pick up bad habits and unhealthy ideas. There is, I suspect, a lesson for us here.